promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar, 1 p.m. in Lagos. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and worldwide on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink, and here are the top stories. Guinea-Bissau's President Embalo says he will not run for re-election. Senegalese President Diomaye Faye vows to crack down on operators of boats used for irregular migration.
Those who convince young people who have no work or even have a job to try their luck with the aim of making money from the little they have to leave for Spain or another destination will have to deal with the state.
Authorities in Nigeria's Borno state says death toll now 30 with over 1 million people displaced.
So far so good. We have mobilized cooks and they have started cooking food in this camp. So these are immediate palliative measures.
And human rights advocates in the Gambia petitioned Parliament over alleged allocation of state lands to individuals, including President Adama Barrow. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Imo Edit with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining us, and a warm welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Ghana, Liberia and Sierra Leone. Well, this afternoon, we'll begin with a surprising development from Guinea-Bissau, as President Umaru Sissoco Embalo said on Wednesday that he will not run for re-election in the presidential post that is expected to be held in 2025. The statement is unexpected as movements had formed in favor of his candidacy as his tenure comes to an end. The length of the current term of office and the date of the next presidential election are controversial. Abdullah Hassan tells us more.
After the December 2019 election, Embalo, a 51-year-old reserve general whose candidacy had been carried by the G15 Madam, claiming victory, was invested in February 2020 for 5 years at the head of the small Portuguese-speaking country with chronic instability. He replaced Jose Mario Vaz, whose authority has been marked by several crises. The international community ended up ratifying his election, but the result of the control gave rise to months of contestation even after the investiture before the validation bodies. Embalo's main opponent, Domingos Simios Pereira of the African Party for the Independence of Guinea and Cape Verde, PAGIC, has always refused to recognize his opponent's victory, which he says is fraudulent. Embalo said on Wednesday that he was opposed to some of his rivals succeeding him. In his words, he said, and I quote, "It will not be Domingos Simios Pereira, Nuno Gomez Nabiam or Brahma Kamara who will replace me. I won't be replaced by a bandit," end of quote. Since its independence from Portugal in 1974, the country has experienced a multitude of coups and attempted coups. The instability and poverty reveal the activities of drug traffickers who use the geographical location of Guinea-Bissau on the Atlantic coast of Africa to transit cocaine from Latin America to Europe with the complicity of army officials.
Abdullah Hassan reporting there. We head now to Mali, where authorities adopted an ordinance at the end of August during a Council of Ministers meeting establishing the new status of magistrates. From now on, freedom of expression will be significantly restricted. The text, which must be approved by the National Transitional Council, is already causing concerns. Echatisu completes the story.
This new statute, spanning 16 pages, contains around 100 articles that define the rights, guarantees, and procedures for the appointment or suspension of magistrates. According to lawyer Umar Bete, this new statute lowers the required qualification to become a magistrate from a master's degree to a bachelor's degree in law. Another change is that the accounts section of the Supreme Court will become a distinct entity to comply with UEMOA standards. The honorary magistrate position will be introduced for retirees who wish to continue serving voluntarily. Although the text does not bring any major changes regarding the rights and obligations of magistrates, their freedom of expression will now be restricted. A year ago, the former chief advocate at the Supreme Court, Sheikh Mohammed Sharif Kone, was dismissed for criticizing the alleged interference of authorities in the Malian justice system. Now in exile, he positions himself as an opponent. In this context, the new provision stipulates that magistrates, while having the same freedoms as citizens, must exercise them with respect for state authority and public order. Lawyer Umar Bete emphasizes that this vague wording could limit their actions. This text, adopted on August 30th in the Council of Ministers, will need to be submitted for approval to the National Transition Council.
Achatiso filed a report stating in Mali the High Authority of Communication has suspended TV Seng Monda for 3 months. The media regulatory authority accuses the French channel of reporting in its African news segment the death of at least 15 civilians in drone raids in Tizawenten in the north without presenting the Malian army's version. In a statement, TV Sengmond expressed regret over the HSC's decision. Here's a report by our Bamako correspondent Ali Cham and voiced by Ogubierika.
According to the September 9 statement from the High Authority of Communication made public on Tuesday, the television channel TV Sengmond is suspended for a duration of 3 months. The channel must therefore be removed from authorized distributor packages, including Canal Plus and Malivision. The media regulatory body accuses the French channel of lacking balance in its coverage of the drone strikes in Tinzawaten in the north of the country. In its African news segment on August 26th, TV Sengmond reported that these strikes resulted in at least 15 civilian deaths without citing the Malian army's version. For the HAC, this constitutes a violation of the legislative and regulatory text on media regulation. In another statement, TV Sengmond expressed regret for not being able to provide explanations regarding the accusations. The channel further clarified that at the time the information was broadcast, the Malian army had not yet provided its version of events despite their request. The Army's version was communicated by the channel in a brief dated August 26, the statement highlights. This decision follows a warning issued against TV Sengmond in May 2023 for similar shortcomings. It is worth noting that since the military took power, several French media outlets have been suspended in the country, including RFI, France 22, France 2, and LCI.
Ogubierika voiced a report sent in by our Bamako correspondent Ali Cham.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
And back in Senegal, President Bassirou Diomaye Faye has vowed Wednesday to crack down on migrant boats after a weekend tragedy killed dozens of people. At least 40 bodies have been recovered so far after a boat carrying migrants capsized off Senegal's coast on Sunday, authorities said as the search continues. Speaking in Mbu, south of the country, it denounced the human traffickers who he said take advantage of desperate Senegalese youth by promising them a better future abroad while leading them to perilous situations. Authorities said the wooden boat was carrying more than 100 irregular migrants from the Senegalese town of Mbu when it sank after only 4 kilometers, about 2.5 miles of navigation.
ñi def li nak di jël ndaw ñi ci seen naqar ak seen ñàkk liggéey gu ñu nekkee ñen ñi sax.
Those who convince young people who have no work or even have a job to try their luck with the aim of making money from the little they have to leave for Spain or another destination will have to deal with the state. We will hunt them down, prosecute them or let them hide. We will find them and they will be severely punished. This situation cannot continue. It's very hard for the parents of the victims and it's also hard for all of us, for the whole country. Young people need to know that the countries they covet so much have been built with courage and determination by their citizens to the point that they want to go there no matter what, in conditions that are far from ideal. We will very soon be setting up a toll-free number. People will be able to call in and report problems. A reward will even be given to people who call to report a boat or anything else along these lines. They will have saved lives and will receive a reward, so everyone will know that this is everybody's business, not just that of the government. Everyone has a responsibility.
Senegalese President Bassirou Diomaye Faye speaking there. Staying in Senegal, as civil society organizations are denouncing travel bans imposed on senior officials of the former regime. In a statement, they called on the authorities to base these measures on legal grounds. This is happening in a context where President Bassirou Diomaye Faye and his Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko expressed concerns about accountability. Well, more details from this report by Gossen Koli.
Among the organizations signing this statement are the NGO3D, the Senegalese League for Human Rights, and the Africa Jom Center. According to these organizations, the measures taken by the authorities are being applied without prior administrative or judicial decisions. The civil society members also signed the note, believe that restrictions on freedoms and travel bans must be based on clear legal grounds, respecting constitutional rights. Sadek Nias, a civil society actor and the signatory of the statement, emphasized this point.
We support accountability in the social domain, but it must be done within the framework of the rules. This means respecting the rights and freedoms of citizens, as well as adhering to all legalities. It is crucial that any decision to restrict a citizens' movement is made transparently and legally. We have been informed that such notifications must be clear and justified, ensuring they are genuinely necessary. We must avoid any abuse of power.
These 14 civil society organizations also called on the authorities to ensure fair and legal accountability while respecting fundamental rights. They urged the state to avoid creating an atmosphere of mistrust that could, I quote, weaken social cohesion, end of quote.
That was a report by Khadijatu Sene and voiced by Gosen Koli. Severe flooding in Maiduguri, northeastern Nigeria, has killed at least 30 people and affected more than 1 million others, according to latest figures from the authorities. The collapse of the Alau Dam on the Ngada River in Borno State on Tuesday caused some of the state's worst flooding since the same dam collapsed 30 years ago and prompted residents to flee their homes. The state governor, Babagana Zulum, said on Wednesday that the dam was at capacity due to unusually high rains. Officials expected the death toll to rise.
So far, so good. We have mobilized cooks, and they have started cooking food in this camp. So these are immediate palliative measures that will cushion their immediate effect. So this morning, what we are here is to distribute the sum of 10,000 naira to each and every heads of household that are affected by floods. And I also want to inform you that a few days ago, luckily enough, we received 3 billion naira from the federal government as flood intervention fund. So we are using this fund to support the communities that are affected by the flood. The water that we received this year exceeds the current capacity of the dam. We have a very heavy storm. It might be associated with climate change. That is the most important thing. So what we need to do is to now reinforce the dam, reconstruct the dam, expand the capacity of the dam, and most importantly, defilt the drains. Because most of the waterways were occupied by human beings. If you can remember a few years ago when I was sworn in as the governor of Borno State, I followed all this route and I asked people to bucket on the waterways. But unfortunately, people don't heed to our own advice.
That was the Borno State Governor, Babagana Zulum, speaking there. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM Dakar. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Guinea-Bissau's President Embalo says he will not run for re-election. Senegalese President Diomaye Faye vows to crack down on operators of boats used for irregular migration. Authorities in Nigeria's Borno State says death toll down 30 with over 1 million people displaced. And still ahead in the news, human rights advocates in the Gambia petitioned Parliament over alleged allocation of state lands to individuals, including President Adama Barrow. We do have the press review, a guest interview, and sports news. Please stay with us.
You are listening to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal.
Don't forget, we are streaming live on wadr.org and follow our live stream on Facebook and YouTube. Let's cross over now to the Gambia, where human rights advocates have submitted a petition to the Parliament requesting investigations into the alleged allocation of state lands to individuals, including President Adama Barrow, state and non-state institutions, organizations, and businesses. This petition arises out of public concerns on allegations of inappropriate and illegal allocation of state land by the executive. The human rights activists want the legislative body to compel some of the allocated lands to be returned to the state. From Banjul, Sankule Janko reports.
Petitioners and human rights activist Madi Jobate, Omar Kamara and Babukar Nyang on Wednesday submitted a petition to Parliament requesting inquiries into the allocation of state lands to public officials, individuals, state and non-state institutions, organizations and businesses to ensure these allocations were done in line with the laws of the Gambia. Babukar Nyang read the demands of the petitioners.
The petition equally seeks to ensure that due process and rule of law were strictly followed and that allocations were legal and legitimate. The petition seeks to ensure accountability in the allocation of all state lands.
This petition arises out of public concerns on allegations of inappropriate and illegal allocation of state land by the executive.
The petition specifically referred to the following officials: 1. The President, 2. The Vice President, 3. The Cabinet Ministers, 4. National Assembly members, 5. Senior officials in ministries, departments and agencies, 6. Judicial officers, 7. Private companies and business persons.
Madi Jobate is a prominent human rights activist and one of the petitioners.
We have seen state institutions renting. So it means the government is not prioritizing public interest, because the money that would be used to rent these properties could have been used to build a massive office space somewhere where state agencies, departments, ministries could occupy without any cost to Gambians. We have seen the Minister for Lands, Mr. Hamad Ba, say they have allocated land that is allocated for the Chief Justice to the President. And by law, the President doesn't qualify to get state land.
This petition seeks for the identification of all beneficiaries of state lands allocations, the names of the respective beneficiaries, the size of the piece of land allocated to each beneficiary, among others. For Newslink, North Africa Democrats Radio, I am Sankuli Jenko reporting from Banjul.
This is the Newspaper Review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the Newspaper Review.
The Newspaper Review.
I will join Nadia today in Accra for the Newspaper Review.
Welcome to the Newspaper Review segment. We'll start off with the Daily Graphic newspaper front page. Farmgate cocoa price soars, ton up from 20,928 cedis to 48,000 and bag from 1,308 to 3,000. Other stories here on the front page of the Daily Graphic. More groups rise against Galamsey, and Alan and 2 others filed to contest 2024 elections. To the New Crusading Guides newspaper, Lands Commission deflates a Blackwest claim over number 5th Circular Road property, says land does not belong to Asase Broadcasting Company. Also here on the front page of the New Crusading Guide newspaper, Ghana needs Baumia's digital focus for global competitiveness. That's according to Dr. Bano. Also here on the front page, declare state of emergency on Galamsey. That's from CCFS to government. The Ghanaian Times newspaper, government orders action against Galamsey, pushes regional ministers and regional security councils to intensify enforcement efforts nationwide. Still on the front page of the Ghanaian Times newspaper, organized labor and other associations as well as CSOs join call to combat illegal mining. Still on the front page of the Ghanaian Times newspaper, support governments to build resilient economy and maintain peace ahead of December polls. The Labour Minister is making that call. That'll be it for the Ghanaian Times. To the Chronicle newspaper now, Baumia's master plan for railways to partner private sector investors to develop network across the country. And here as well, small-scale miners rejects calls to ban mining. That's it for the Chronicle newspaper. To the Daily Post now, front page, Professor Nana Jane will make history as Ghana's first female vice president. That's according to the NDC flag bearer, John Dramani Mahama. Other stories here. I am no longer a politician. Asamoah Gyan denounces NPP. Government efforts to stop Galamsey are weak, inconsistent and corrupt. That's according to the Catholic Bishops' Conference. The final newspaper front page, cocoa 45% price hike. New producer price per ton now 48,000. We'll end with the Anchor newspaper front page. Small-scale mining, not a criminal venture. Don't ban it. Also here on the front page, Baumia appoints Mrikuduka as campaign coordinator for mining communities. Final story here, Alan picks Kwesi Pratt's in-law as running mate. That'll be it for what the dailies are reporting. Today, it's back to you.
Many thanks. Nadia today in Accra with the Newspaper Review.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters and all. This is a guest.
Well, in this segment, we'll bring you update on the devastating flood in Maiduguri, Borno State, northeast Nigeria, where the death toll is now 30 and over 1 million people have been displaced. We join our correspondent Usman Mar, who will bring us updates on this chat with Abdullahi Hassan.
As you rightly recalled, Borno State, particularly Maiduguri, which is the capital of the state, has been under some very, very serious challenge as a result of a very devastating and unprecedented, flooding that has ravaged more than 70% of the city. As at today, of course, rescue efforts are still ongoing, but before now, as at yesterday, the federal government had responded through its agencies, that is National Emergency Management Agencies, and of course, even the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management has also been there, and the Northeast Development Commission officials have also been in the state, all in an effort to say that they bring relief to the over 400,000 people that have been displaced by the flooding thus far. Of course, according to NEMA, that is National Emergency Management Records, about 30 people have been confirmed dead as a result of this very disaster.
Has there been any development regarding palliatives for the affected people, especially women?
As at last night, I spoke to about 3 of the people in Borno, in Maiduguri, who are seriously affected. In fact, 2 of these 3 people have been caught up in their shops. For the past 3 days, they haven't been able to go out. But of course, they said the Nigerian army officials were able to come as at last night, and they started rescue operations, breaking people out of the shops, or some people have actually been on rooftops, have been not been able to come down, and the hunger, of course, as you know, will set in. So relief efforts are ongoing. Even as at this morning, there were people who are still calling out for any type of assistance because they have been rendered homeless. So essentially what the people are asking for now is feeding and accommodation.
One major concern right now is the fact that the state government announced that nearly 300 prisoners had escaped, and among these prisoners are high-profile Boko Haram commanders or fighters. Is this raising any concern already for the state and residents?
Yes, thank you very much for this very, very important question, because I had a conversation with the security experts who also raised the same concern. It's been a very major concern out of many other concerns as a result of this flooding, because before now, there are people who the state government, despite the existence of a rehabilitation program, they said those ones are beyond rehabilitation and are to serve their full prison term. Now, most of these guys are also out, just like we had the stories of some wild animals also on rampage who have been able to escape from the zoo as a result of the flooding. So it's a very, very serious concern, and part of the things that the state government must begin to do, even though, of course, it says it has already set up a committee to look into especially the possible health hazards that may be associated with this flooding. The next thing a lot of people, especially security experts, are calling on the government to do is to, of course, also heighten search and arrest for the escaped prisoners, particularly the hardened ones that have participated in the insurgency, in terrorism, in the fashion of Boko Haram or OSIWA. So that's a very, very serious concern for a lot of stakeholders at this point.
That was our Abuja correspondent Usman Omar bringing us update on the flood in Maiduguri, northeast Nigeria. And here is Sport News with Sankle Janko.
Hello out there, a warm welcome and thank you for joining us. The President of Confederation of African Football, CAF President Dr. Patrice Motsepe, will visit the Republic of Cote d'Ivoire as head of state, President Alassane Ouattara, in Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire, on Thursday, 12 September 2024. The CAF President will attend the CAF Africa Cup of Nations 2023 Legacy Handover event in Abidjan, where he will be joined by Cote d'Ivoire Minister of Sports and Cote d'Ivoire Football Federation President Yassine Idriss Diallo. The CAF Africa Cup of Nations 2023 Legacy Handover will kick off the CAF Africa Cup of Nations 2023 Coaches Symposium scheduled for Thursday and Friday, 12 and 13 September respectively. And tickets for the CAF Super Cup 2024 final between Al Ahly FC and Zamalek SC in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia have been sold out in less than 24 hours of tickets going on sale, according to CAF official website. The high demand for tickets for the match underscores the importance and interest in the match between the Egyptian giants. Scheduled for Friday, 27 September 2024 in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, the event will see two of Africa's most successful football clubs compete in what promises to be an electrifying clash. That's it for sports. It's back to you.
And we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Christian Mukuda and Mount Ojuf for the technical support. Connect with us on all of our social media platforms: X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, at WDR News, and Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is our flagship environment program, Enviroscope, focusing on climate change and the worsening humanitarian crisis. I am Imo Edet. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3.